Drivers? Are foreign drivers taking U.S. freight jobs? The American Trucking Association says yes, and they're calling it theft, not competition. ATA President Chris Spear is demanding tougher federal enforcement of cabotage laws after reports of foreign drivers hauling freight within U.S. borders under temporary visas. Here's what's happening, why it matters, and how the government is starting to crack down. The American Trucking Associations, or ATA, is raising an alarm, and this time, it's about what they call cheaters in the industry. ATA President and CEO Chris Spear is calling on the federal government to step up enforcement of cabotage laws, accusing some carriers of illegally using foreign drivers on temporary visas to haul freight within U.S. borders. According to Spear, this practice is not competition, it's theft, because it undercuts American drivers who play by the rules. What does cabotage means, and why it's a big deal? In trucking, cabotage refers to the transport of goods between two U.S. points by a foreign-based carrier or driver. U.S. law allows foreign trucks to cross the border and deliver international shipments, but once that load is dropped, they can't pick up another purely domestic haul. So, you may be asking, why does this rule exist? Simply put, to protect American jobs from being replaced by cheaper foreign labor. It also helps make sure there's fair competition among carriers, since everyone's supposed to operate under the same costs and safety standards. And it keeps cross-border trucking in line with trade agreements like the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, or USMCA. But, according to the ATA, some carriers are actually exploiting visa loopholes, especially B-1 business visas, to run domestic routes that really should legally be reserved for United States drivers. And so, the ATA's message is very simple: enforce the law. Chris Spear is pushing for stronger federal oversight, saying the violations are hurting law-abiding carriers and driving down wages. The ATA is asking for increased inspections at ports of entry and along freight corridors, a review of temporary visa programs used for commercial drivers, and penalties against carriers found violating cabotage laws. In short, ATA wants the federal government, especially the Department of Homeland Security and U.S. Customs and Border Protection, or CBP, to send a clear message: cabotage violations won't be ignored. Until recently, cabotage laws were rarely enforced, but in 2025, the tide began to turn. In mid-2025, CBP actually detained about 20 Mexican drivers in Calexico, California, for allegedly hauling domestic freight illegally, and around 100 visas were reportedly revoked over that same issue. Then, on May 20th, 2025, CBP issued a formal notice warning that any driver hauling freight between U.S. cities without international cargo was, well, in violation of the law. After reports of fatal crashes involving ineligible foreign drivers and a bunch of claims about unfair job competition, the U.S. Department of State announced a pause on new work visas for commercial truck drivers. So, a national audit by the FMCSA and the U.S. DOT found that some states, especially California, had actually issued non-domiciled CDLs to drivers who no longer had legal U.S. status. The outcome? Emergency policy changes and much tighter federal oversight of commercial licensing. These actions really show that Washington is starting to take the ATA's warnings seriously, highlighting more the cabotage violations, governed by 19 CFR Section 123.14, subsection C, which basically prohibits foreign trucks from carrying domestic freight unless it's just incidental to an international trip. So, that means a truck from Mexico or Canada can drop a load in the United States, but the driver cannot legally pick up and deliver another load inside the country before heading back out. A violation of this law can lead to fines, vehicle seizures, or even visa cancellations for the drivers involved. Some states are tightening their own rules. Like Texas, they have announced that it will stop issuing CDLs to refugees, asylum seekers, and DACA recipients under new federal guidance. And Congress is considering legislation that would penalize states that issue CDLs to drivers without proper legal status. At the same time, other states are linking English language proficiency and immigration verification directly to CDL eligibility to make sure they're complying with federal law. These moves aim to close the gaps that allow foreign drivers to operate domestically under the radar. For everyday truckers, this issue hits close to home. Because when foreign drivers haul domestic freight illegally, it shrinks the pool of available loads for U.S. drivers. It also undermines fair pay and safe working standards. And it ends up rewarding carriers that cut corners while penalizing those who follow the law. Chris Spear and the ATA say this isn't about politics. It's about protecting the integrity of America's trucking industry. The message is simple. Every driver should play by the same rules, on the same roads. Expect more audits, border inspections, and investigations in the months ahead. The federal government has already shown signs of renewed focus, and the ATA intends to keep the pressure on until illegal cabotage is fully addressed. For carriers and drivers, the takeaway is clear. Keep your paperwork clean, your routes compliant, and your operation above board. Because, as the ATA puts it, those who cheat the system are stealing from every American driver who earns an honest living. Thanks for watching, and thank you, Jim, for bringing this subject to our attention. As always, drivers stay safe.